2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. For everyone who was complaining about all the Hall of Fame programming and all the baseball talk we've done around here, and I'll tell you what, it's given like a good 6-month exhale to every football buddy in my life. There are about 80 of you out there that I fish in and bring in, and before I even bring you in, I guess we have to speak to the loss of Don Banks. But Eric Edholm has been my friend for so many years now, and talking nothing but football here. And dude, I've given everybody off since like April. I didn't even bother anybody during Ed Reed, none of the Lamar Jackson. I haven't even given you a chance to tell me how the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl. So this is the first opportunity. It is so good to chat with you. I know you're at Yahoo now and doing your thing and doing a whole bunch of scouting stuff. But man, welcome in. It's football season, right?
Oh, it's here. And, you start seeing stuff like those numbers on Twitter, like number of days until college football starts, number of days till training camp. Like, those are even past us now. We're in it. So it's all in front of us.
A couple decades into this, so much has changed, right? Like the Ravens and the way they do camp, and we're watching Gruden do the Hard Knocks thing and all of that. I know you were at Bears camp as well. I am inking a piece, and I'm going to be the old guy, get off my lawn, and this is just first deal this week is, do I drive to Philadelphia for the always important third preseason game where I've watched the first two from 6 blocks from my house and have just hated the whole experience, like have garnered very little from being in the locker room afterward where nobody's there, from being in the stands where nothing's happening, to this. They really, really need to look at this, right? Like, I mean, it's a brand issue, and what they're doing in August is just, it's so limp, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right about it being a brand issue, right? I mean, it's still part of the product. And if you take that into consideration, I mean, it's not going to get high grades for, bang for buck or entertainment value or any of that stuff. But, as long as the clubs are able to package these things with the season tickets and get people to pay for 10 games of which 8 they're really interested in. I mean, look, I don't see it as a huge problem from the NFL's perspective in the sense. I mean, they've talked about it, right? Of course, they brought it up. But how
do they get people to use the tickets? I mean, it's an optic thing, I think, at this point, as much as anything else. I mean, just the fact that no one has any – you don't value it even after you pay for it. Eric, tell me the meal you've ever ordered that's been a $100 meal that when it came, you looked at it and said – I really didn't want it anyway, or I'm not even going to bother to go to the – I mean, it's an incredible phenomenon, right, that we all love purple so much. And I've got my purple lava lamp out here now from Sporticulture, right? Like, we love it all, but I don't want to cross the street. It's 6 blocks from my house, and my wife says, I'll walk up there, and I said, someone's going to offer you a free ticket. She said, God, I hope not. I hope not. Literally, that happened 2 weeks ago.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, look, do I think there are people who, kids or people who haven't been to a game in years who might enjoy it? Sure, right. But obviously we know that the baseline product for the preseason is pretty limited, which is so funny because last year I wrote a story about a massive fight that broke out in an Arizona Cardinals Chicago Bears game, preseason game in like 86. Bears just won the Super Bowl. It was the following August. And I'm watching this game on YouTube, and I'm like, man, preseason was wild back then. Like, those are the Wild West days. Like, there were fights, there were referees, coaches screaming. I thought, this mattered back then.
But the other part is you can't suspend me. I'm getting cut on Monday. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's so true. But, yeah, I mean, look, I'll be so fascinated to see how they deal with this in the next CBA and whether, there's a regular season game added, whether there's some other –
they're going to get 18 games, right? I mean, CTE and concussion, all that stuff. At some point, the union, to me, if they did away with the preseason games and added the 2, and look, to what the Ravens are doing this week, and we'll get to football, Eric, at home, and I'm going to get to Don Banks and everything else, and how much I enjoy talking to all of you who talk football with me and discuss these important issues like 18 games and all of that. But I think more than anything, the coaches are now buddy-buddy. Harbaugh gets together with Peterson. They go up there. They spend 2-3 days together in these controlled practices. I saw the purple-white practice. Fans had a better time watching them run 200 scrimmage plays than sitting around showing up for the fake Jaguars to practice for 3 days on the practice field. Then the person that holds the ticket shows up, and like Nick Foles is nowhere to be found. I mean, like, that's the real issue here, is that the coaches would rather do this a different way, and they would make a better football team to do it a different way.
Right. I mean, the NFL is always going to look at it from a revenue standpoint and say, hey, players, you want more money? Then we got to keep these games in some form. You know, they're not going to just be replaced, right? They're going to come in some other form, either regular season games or whatnot. But the joint practice thing really is interesting. And you see some teams, some fan bases really embrace the camp thing, right? And it's going to maybe depend on how good they are one year versus the next. But I really think those joint practices, from a media standpoint, they're great because you have access to two different teams, two different rosters, 180 players, two coaching staffs, whatever. But from a fan standpoint, too, I mean, look, you love watching your quarterback beat up your second-team corner, but it's better to do it against another team, and there's some real excitement out there and real interest in what the players are doing.
Well, you talk about chippiness. That's where it gets chippy. All right, Eric Edholm is here, Yahoo. We're going to talk some football. It's been months since I've had you on. The phenomenon of the Browns going to the Super Bowl, we've been joking about that since the draft, and the draft is now 4 months ago, right? For the Ravens and where you are and where they are, and they're this preseason phenomenon, and we see Lamar running around and doing crazy things that he shouldn't be doing in August and would scare us in December, quite frankly. This is a new way of life for the Ravens, for Harbaugh, for our organization. I haven't found a lot of believers, true believers, like that are going to stand here and pound the table and say Lamar Jackson's going to win Super Bowls and this offense is the sleeping giant and this is going to be the one that breaks through, that no one's ever done it this way. And I haven't found any. And look, I can't think that you can't help but be skeptical for something, as in Smoking the Bandit said, it ain't never been done because we ain't never done it, but it ain't never been done. And that's the reason to think, yeah, this is flashy and it's cool and it'll sell some tickets and we'll watch some football, but in the end, it's going to be very hard to win consistently like this.
Yeah, and, the thing about the NFL, too, is that you can just find the right mix at the right time and go win a Super Bowl. Mess around and win a Super Bowl, and maybe the year before you're 5-11, the year after you're 9-7, whatever. The point is, like, if they feel like they can put it all together for one season, it may not be this season, but it might be next, it might be the year after that, and they feel like they've constructed the roster in the likeness that they imagine, which is, as you pointed out, vastly different from what other teams are doing on a full scale. They might sprinkle in a little of the Lamar offense into what they do. You got Josh Allen, or you've got Kyler Murray. Obviously, they're doing something a little different out there in Arizona. But
it's going to create a whole different pre-scout the couple weeks before. It's going to create a whole different workload on your DC. Your whole defensive operation is going to get tested the week you play the Baltimore Ravens, right? And that's part of the preparing for the knuckleball, right? A little bit, right? But somebody's still got to catch the knuckleball too.
Yeah. No, I mean, right. This is not a perfect product. What you're hoping is that your style, like Navy, running the triple option in college football, like it's just not something you see. It's not something you prepare for. It's not something that you spend time thinking about until it's game week usually. So yeah, it's, it is going to be fascinating, and their roster makeup is going to be different than other teams. And yet, every time Lamar tucks it and runs, you're thinking we're one snap from RG3 or one snap from Trace McSorley, and there comes a little breath holding with that. So that's
a little. I remember the first time I was in Canton last year for the Ray Lewis proceedings, and the Ravens played that game against the Bears, and he came in there and started running into linebackers on carpet, and I'm like, oh my God, it's July. Are you kidding me? you know what I mean? Like none of it's felt good, and even last week, running around in a play that got whistled back. And I said, if it counts, it doesn't count. And what is he doing? Because you wouldn't want to see Tom Brady out there. You wouldn't want to see Ben Roethlisberger out there. You wouldn't want to see your guy out there, no matter who your guy is. And we're going to live with that week after week. And it's not like he's afraid of linebackers. That's it. And whenever Luke and I talk about it, Luke's always like, hey, dude, that's his game. That's what he's going to do. And I'm like, yeah, and, that's running into walls is going to be, the end of it. I mean, I don't know how you can't feel that way, but you do feel like they do more to protect quarterbacks, hook slide. Nobody's going to pound into the ground the way they did Jim McMahon 25 years ago. Right. But that being said, it's a violent game.
Yeah. No, I mean, I thought, everybody talked about, Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson having that little post-game powwow, and that sort of became a little viral moment for a minute. To me, the most interesting part was when he said, hey, let's take a slide here and there. And Aaron would know, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy who's twice broken his collarbone, had a knee injury last year, had other stuff, and has taken some hits. So, look, I mean, that's the key advice is knowing when to duck out of bounds, when to slide, when to, sort of play possum for a second. And, I mean, that's part of quarterbacking, too. If you're going to put yourself in harm's way, look, you're not a running back. You have a different value to the team. You have a different purpose. So it's not questioning your toughness. It's not anything about that. It's more about self-preservation and what it matters for the team.
Eric Edholm has covered the National Football League for many years. He is at Yahoo. You can follow him at Eric_Edholm. That's EDHOLM. Are you a believer or not? Come on, don't duck the questions now. Next year's election season, are you a believer they're going to win 11 or 12 games, they can win a division, that they can be that kind of a factor, especially when you take into account the defense, Earl Thomas? And Eric, man, I've been here from the beginning, right? This is the most heart transplant in the history of the organization when you consider DeCosta in, Harbaugh stays put, and Weddle, Mosley, Suggs, Flacco. I mean, it has been a complete change of everything. Culture, let's start with culture, but just personnel, who these people are, who the leaders are going to be, how the team's going to play, how they're going to deal with adversity, all of that needs to be baked into the cake. I think it's very natural outside of Baltimore to say, yeah, I'll believe the quarterback that runs around is going to win a Super Bowl when I see the one that does. So I have felt a healthy dose of skepticism. But, hey, it's going to be fun. I get that, too. But I don't think anybody's ready to bet $1 on it.
Yeah, there are a few people out there, in the analytics committee who, people who were big Jackson believers coming out of Louisville, people who obviously recognize the Ravens' pattern of success, down year here and there, sure. But for the most part, they've been above that watermark, that mid-watermark in the league. And so, you win 2 Super Bowls in a relatively short period of time, you're going to earn some credibility as well. And, I think it can work in that scenario I painted earlier where, look, there are going to be some years where this isn't going to happen. And I think Lamar's been scattershot enough to question his passing coming into this season. Do I think that he, just like Josh Allen, just like Sam Darnold, those other second-year quarterbacks can take a jump? Absolutely. No doubt. I mean, that year 1 to 2, if you're a rookie starter and you've gotten some humbling moments, you had some throws you'd like to take back, that second-year growth can often be pretty consequential. That's why I kind of like the Ravens. That's why I like the Bills and Jets this year, unlike other people. So I see some dollar bettors out there. I don't see the Sharks and Whales coming in. But you know what? It wouldn't completely stun me if they can shock some people. If, like I said, if not this year, the next, because of all they lost defensively.
Well, the Sharks are on to Jared Goff, and they're on to Baker Mayfield, and they're on to, right? I mean, they're on to Houston, maybe. They're on to other teams other than this, even though this was the team that didn't lose after October, right? This was the team that ran around and made plays and shortened the games and did all of these things, almost beat Kansas City in Kansas City, right? So all of those things that happened last year, I would think in a normal circumstance, you would find more people saying, hey, the Ravens can make some noise. I don't know that I'm feeling that way because I don't know that people believe in a second-year quarterback that, quite frankly, kicked the ball around a lot, right? Like, this offense put the ball on the ground a lot, and every time it did, I said, well, what do you expect when you're handing the ball off 45 times and playing hot potato where nobody knows really where the ball's going? Most of the offensive coordinators are so buttoned down in their offenses, they want to know where the ball's going all the time, first, second, third read for every quarterback. That's not what this offense is about. This is more like kinesthetic. It's more like, should I give it or should I keep it, let's find out. Let's see what the defense does after we snap the ball. That's a whole different way of living, man. It's a different out on the plank for everyone responsible, not named Lamar.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the biggest thing for me is identifying who those key playmakers are. Now, obviously, Hollywood Brown to me has that kind of flash ability, but I mean, it's a little like what Deshaun Jackson was in Philly in the early days. Like, they didn't really have that guy on that team who had the 12 targets a game. You know what I mean? Every game you were going to be seeing a ton of balls thrown their way. Spreading it around is fine, but you also, when it's 3rd and 7 in the fourth quarter and you're protecting a 6-point lead or you're coming back from down a touchdown, those are the money plays, and those are the guys you want to seek. Is there a guy on the roster that can be that player? I thought maybe, the way Mark Andrews was catching the ball, maybe, but now you hear he's, not getting the first team reps you'd expect. More Nick Boyle, it's more, Hurst, et cetera. So is there a receiver who's going to step up? Maybe, besides Brown. I mean, I don't know. So part of that design plays into the fact that, look, they don't really have that, that guy in that traditional sense where you're going to be, that he's going to get 3 or 4 targets per quarter, and that's just the way it is.
I bet Mark Andrews leads the team. That's my guess. My guess is he will catch 84 balls. It'd be something crazy. Maybe not that many because they might not throw that much, but I think he'll catch 8 a week. If anybody's going to catch 8 a week, it's going to be him. He'll be the first to catch 8. How about that? And certainly with getting Hollywood onto the field. And look, as much as they've spent 8 months saying they're going to pass the ball more, I don't know what that looks like, but I don't think he can pass the ball 14 times, 18 times a week. That's why I said he'll get 8 at some point because I think he'll be the targeted guy. The other part of this is just where the defense is in all of this, right? Like, Weddle, Suggs, sort of the transplant of all of this. Mosley gone. Who's going to step into that role? Is Brandon Williams going to earn the big bucks? They lost Tavon in week 2. Deep depth at the secondary until you see how Jimmy Smith has played lately. So, there's questions there, but I'll buy into the defense being more consistent week to week because I don't think the defense is going to put the ball on the ground. I think the defense is going to have a lot of three and outs because they did last year.
Yeah, right. They may not be the turnover machine we saw 2 years ago, but they may not be, as low as they were in that category last year too. So we'll see. I mean, I'll tell you what. I mean, from afar, people up in Green Bay are saying Zadarius Smith has been playing great. That could be a player that, okay, maybe he wasn't producing at a crazy high level last year, but you would have loved to have him. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. And obviously with Suggs, it's more of, like you said, kind of a culture or personality thing at this stage, even though he can still play. But, yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, the biggest thing. What is the identity of this group? Is it going to flow from Earl Thomas forward, or is it going to be from those big guys in the trenches? And they have some pretty good ones, Brandon Williams, et cetera. Is that going to be kind of the identity of the heartbeat of this defense? I don't know. I'm curious to find out. I happen to think Don Martindale's a little bit underrated in some respects. So, I mean, I guess with the questions we have on offense aren't too different from what we have on defense. A lot of new faces, as you pointed out. Kind of that identity crisis until we've seen it for, 5 or 6 weeks running. So I'm fascinated by this team. I don't think the Steelers are going away. I don't think the Browns are going to run away with this division. So that puts me still in the camp that the Ravens can compete.
Yeah, anybody kicking dirt on the Steelers, I put an end to that in April. I said,
crazy.
Yeah, don't do that. The Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and all that. And look, Eric Edholm is here from Yahoo Sports. You can follow him. He's Eric _Edholm out on the Twitter thing as well. At this point, it's August. I haven't watched the second Hard Knocks because I could barely get through the first one, although people tell me it's picking up here this week. What's your favorite circus? I mean, the Browns were sort of the April circus, and the Jets were their own little circus, and now my boy Joe D is turking it up there, trying to run the place. The whole league, the Cowboys are a circus, right? Like, everybody's got a little circus in August. Then you got to go play in 2 weeks when all the cuts are done and stuff. What are your storylines here as we head into week one? Because you and I probably won't get together till October or November.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, I think if you want to talk circuses, some of these holdouts are really getting interesting. It seems like, if anything, the Zeke thing with Dallas, which appeared to be kind of turning the corner a little bit, has now kind of gone back. He's on his way back to Cabo, or may have already arrived. I don't think it's that long a flight, I guess, from when I read the story.
I'm sure he'll be on Instagram by lunchtime, yeah.
Yeah, oh gosh, he'll be having fish tacos out by the bay. So, look, I mean, I don't know what to think about that. Dak Prescott, by the way, has handled himself perfectly. This is a guy whose deal is up sooner, and that talk about the $40 million, that hasn't been brought up lately because the whole Zeke drama that's going on. So they're one of those things. The circus in Washington, what's going on with the Redskins? They don't want to pay their left tackle to protect their sort of spurious quarterback situation. I mean, I can't figure what that team is trying to accomplish right now with a head coach on the hot seat. So that's more of an ugly circus, whereas Dallas is more of a get your popcorn circus, I guess. And and then you kind of look to the Jets and say, hey, maybe this craziness with Gase and Greg Williams and Darnold and everybody else, maybe it works. Maybe this weird mix produces a team that's better than people realize. So that's kind of more of a fun crazy going on up in Florham Park.
I just hope my boy Flacco's not throwing any more pick sixes out there. And I'm pulling for Joe. I mean, I got a little side bet on Joe just because I want to see him do well. Just because I always like Joe. I mean, why wouldn't I like Joe? He brought Super Bowls here. There wasn't one thing to dislike about Joe Flacco's tenure here, other than it ended. He wasn't good enough at the end. The team around him wasn't good enough at the end, and they part ways. But I will be watching the Broncos more, especially now that Marvin's not in the league, Jack's on TV, Rex, all my buddies, I mean, Billick's on a boat somewhere. I don't have much left here, but if Flacco can at least make it interesting in November, I would welcome those 4:00 games in the snow from Denver with him.
Yeah, no, they're going to be really interesting. I'll tell you what I know about that team. Vic Fangio could coach. And I think Flacco is the perfect kind of first-year quarterback for him. I didn't think that a couple months ago, but I've talked to some people who are, who understand Vic's thinking, and they're like, look, if they can protect him, that's really the biggest thing that they're worried about right now. You saw kind of the second-team Broncos offensive line get Drew Lock killed last night. So anybody wishing that the rookie would get in there, I don't think that's happening anytime soon. I think Joe's the guy. And I think he'll start the season well. Remember, look, we've seen it before where he plays well early, and then something happens. Either it's an injury, or just a backslide. He doesn't play as well after that first stretch. So I think the Broncos could be a team that maybe surprise people early on. They're going to play well defensively. They're going to have just enough juice offensively, a little bit of a run game. Joe's going to try to avoid mistakes. He's got Emmanuel Sanders coming back. How that guy is playing right now, I have no idea. But, I think there's a mix there where Vic can win some games early, and that Joe will be a part of it. So I think they're built to last, though. I don't know. I can't quite. They seem like a 7-9 win team. That's where I kind of have them. I think they'll be better, but not great.
Yeah, I mean, I think consensus on every team is sort of similar this time of year. We all say, well, the Chiefs, and we can't bet against Brady, and look at the Rams, and look at the Eagles, and what will they be with Carson Wentz? So for you, when we have a drink in our hand and our toes in the sand in Miami Beach, what do you got for me? What direction you going with this thing 2 weeks from now?
A week ago, I was sort of keyed in on the Eagles. I really think they have a good team, and I believe that the Chiefs are putting something special together. I really do. I know the way they lost that playoff game, the defense was just a sieve. People can't get that out of their heads. I get that. There's a new defensive coordinator. They brought in Frank Clark. They brought in Tyrann Mathieu. They brought in Juan Thornhill, a kid out of Virginia that, I'll tell you what, I think is going to be better than I realized. I had him graded a little lower than some other people. Been impressed. So I think all that defensively, Mahomes may not throw for 50 again, but he'll be great. I think those are the two teams that have the most talent, Eagles, Chiefs. But the Eagles, I mean, Carson Wentz hasn't been healthy in forever, he hasn't gone through a year without an injury since I think his freshman year at North Dakota State. And their two backups are hurt now. They had to go get Josh McCown, so that really
because
worries
Colin
me
Kaepernick was unavailable. I saw that on the internet.
Right. No, I know, but
that's next week's episode, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know if Carson goes down, and the history says he will at some point. I mean, that's just the trend, but. That worries me. But the Eagles have a boatload of talent. Their 53-man cut-down day is going to be – you'll see more people claimed from them, the Patriots, a couple other teams that just have those stocked rosters 1 through 60. And there'll be some players that end up immediately on other teams because they're good enough to play elsewhere.
Can you imagine Andy Reid beating the Eagles in a Super Bowl? Wouldn't that be great?
Oh my gosh! I mean, I realized as I was picking that. I knew the storyline obviously, but I tried not to fall into those traps. I just started to say like, who's the best? But obviously, that would be a week of Andy Reid deflecting and hey, I love Mr. Lurie and and I like Joe Banner and blah blah. Come on.
We would all get to show our emotional intelligence that week is what we would get to do.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I'll be out at the beach while you guys do that.
Tell me about what you're doing out at Yahoo and the draft and all that stuff too, because you're into the draft even when it's not draft season, right? Somebody's got to do what Mayock's doing now.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm working on. No, I'm kidding. I love it at Yahoo. I have great people around me. I mean, they've kind of let me carve out a position here and said, go make the draft interesting 12 months a year. Well, okay, it's not so easy in June when you've been, gorged on draft stuff from January to April, but still trying to find interesting stories out there. Look, I'm not a scout. I don't pretend to be one. I have observational skills. So I'm going to defer to the people in the league that I trust and know best for that kind of stuff. But looking at draft history and trends and tendencies and trying to figure out who's going to have all the ammo next year, which teams could be taking quarterbacks and which prospects have the best stories and which ones could zoom into the picture out of nowhere. I'm going to be trying to attack this thing from all angles, and so far I'm having a blast.
Dude, always love your work. Great follow out on Yahoo, if you want some old police flashbacks or even sometimes pictures of your kid. Have a great season, man. I hope to check in with you a few times, and I hope whenever I do, the Browns stink like they usually do, because it'll be a lot more fun the next time we visit if they're like 1-3 to start the year.
This is like the SI cover in '87 with the Indians. Remember Corey Snyder and everything? Like, people are saying, like, they're going to be jigs. They're not going to be out there. They're going to lose. So we'll see. We'll see if that actually happens.
Hey, dude, they come in here September the 29th. We go out there Christmas week. I have never been to the Christmas Story Museum Christmas week, but I am planning on doing it this year. Me and Ralphie, the whole pack will be out there, and I've never been in Cleveland when it's been anything other than like 3-11. So a Christmas week in Cleveland, if there was real juice on a Ravens Cleveland, I mean, wouldn't that be something? I mean, it would have only.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought of it like that.
We're 20 years into this century. I've gone to every one of these games, for crying out loud.
I know.
At least give me one good one in December. And
I think it could happen. They're a good team. Look, they're good. I think you'll be entertained by what the Browns do this year. I don't know if that translates to 12-4, but we'll see.
I'd say I'm pulling for him, but I'm not. Eric, always good to have you on. Be well.
All right, buddy. See you then.
Eric Edholm, Yahoo Sports, out covering all sorts of stuff and making it happen. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. All of our sponsors are there. Baltimore Positive is there as well. We had to reschedule Ben Card. We're going to do that a little later on in the fall. 3 Baltimore Positive events next week, including Ravens president Dick Cass joining us at Roost Chris Pier 5 down at the Harbor on Wednesday night at 5 o'clock. Don Moeller and I doing all sorts of Baltimore Positive stuff back at Jennings and at State Fair in Catonsville, as well as downtown at Fadley's in Lexington Market, as we did David Hornbeck last week. You can find that at Baltimore Positive as well as in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat. Anywhere you travel on the internet, we travel with you. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.